In the small town of Westwood, an unlikely group of friends gathered once a month under the banner of the Gentlemen's Westwood Club. These were no ordinary men. They shared a unique bond, united by a common interest in the legendary tales of the American Wild West. Each member proudly wielded a replica of a classic Navy Colt, symbolizing the rough, unyielding spirit of an era gone by. Their meetings were often a blend of friendly banter, shooting practice, and tales of frontier heroics. They idolized names like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, sharing a camaraderie that only men with shared passions could know. And while they often swapped gossip about the town, one member's tale would soon turn their world upside down. The club's vice president, Ralph Griffin, had been the deputy headmaster at Westwood High School for years, dreaming of the day he would rise to the top. But his hopes were dashed when the position was handed to an outsider, a former kindergarten principal named Nancy Dell. She was a politically connected woman, married to a prominent local official, who seemed to have climbed her way up through influential friends rather than merit. Ralph despised her from day one, and things only grew worse with Nancy's arrival. As her first official act, Nancy used school funds to attend a prestigious education conference overseas. When she returned, she had hired a man named Reece Sparkford, an Oxford-educated teacher from the Caribbean, to improve the English curriculum. But soon enough, whispers circulated about Reece's troubled professional history. He was charming, handsome, and by all appearances trouble. In their little town, gossip traveled fast, and Reece quickly became the talk of the club. Ralph confided in the group one night, revealing that he had installed a listening device in Nancy's office to keep tabs on the new hire. It wasn't exactly legal, but Ralph didn't care. He was desperate to find a flaw that would bring Nancy down. The recording Ralph shared was jaw-dropping. It captured an intimate conversation between Nancy and Reece, where she struggled to hold him accountable for his behavior, and Reece, in return, blatantly flirted and seduced her. The audio ended with explicit sounds, leaving the club members stunned. Days later, the rumors spiraled further. The school janitor, who'd caught Reece in compromising positions with other teachers, became a well-paid ally to Ralph's spying mission. When the janitor reported that Reece was organizing an evening English course for teachers with suspicious motives, Ralph's suspicions grew. And soon, Ralph discovered Reece had marked down the names of several women on his so-called private list, including Ralph's own wife, Maryanne. As each club meeting unfolded, Ralph shared his growing paranoia and frustration with his friends. He could sense Reece's charm working on Maryanne. She seemed captivated, gushing over her evening classes. Ralph confronted her, warning that Reece's interest might go beyond academics, but she laughed it off, accusing Ralph of being jealous. Then one day, Ralph encountered the vice principal at the hardware store. They swapped updates, with the vice principal mentioning Reece's notorious list. Maryanne's name was added, leaving Ralph with a pit in his stomach. Desperate to protect his wife, Ralph took to monitoring her as best he could, although his options were limited. Weeks later, he overheard Maryanne giggling about a promised private session with Reece. That night, Ralph's patience snapped. He couldn't shake the image of Maryanne falling for Reece's flirtations, just like the others. So, one Friday afternoon, Ralph made a plan. He knew Maryanne finished early, so he returned home without warning. Outside the house, he spotted Reece's distinctive red bicycle, confirming his worst fears. Determined, he slipped into the house quietly, his heart pounding, and retrieved his Colt. With the revolver loaded, but no bullets in the chamber, Ralph crept up to the bedroom. As he approached, he heard unmistakable sounds from within. Rage surged through him as he burst through the door, raising the revolver, aiming it directly at the bed. In an instant, he fired a blank shot at Reece, the loud blast and flash startling him into a near panic. Reece scrambled to cover himself as Ralph fired another blank, sending him stumbling out of bed in a desperate dash toward the door. Reece grabbed his jacket, covering himself before darting out of the house. Humiliated and shaken, Ralph stood his ground, warning Maryanne to gather her belongings and leave the bedroom immediately. Then he tore apart the bed frame with an axe, loading the remains into his truck and driving them to the dump. By the end of the week, word had spread throughout Westwood. Reece had left the school under personal circumstances, and Nancy quietly resigned. Ralph returned to the club with a sense of vindication, though the cost of his revenge had marked him deeply.